The morning my 81-year-old mother called and said her chest felt tight, my wife refused to let me borrow the SUV sitting 20 feet from the front door because she had a bridal brunch that afternoon. My truck was in the shop. My mother lived 11 minutes away. Her left hand was going numb. I stood at the bottom of the stairs with my phone pressed against my ear and said, "Vanessa, I need the keys. Ruth may be having a heart attack." My wife looked down at me in her robe, completely calm, and said, "Then call an ambulance. She's scared of ambulances. You know what happened when Dad died." Vanessa sighed like I had reminded her about a clogged drain. "Daniel, I have Brooke's final dress fitting, then lunch with Tyler's mother. I cannot lose my whole day because your mother refuses to act like a normal person." I stared at her. "Her arm is numb." Vanessa tightened the belt on her robe. "She's your mother, not mine. Figure it out." Then she walked back into the bedroom and closed the door. I did figure it out. I called my mother's 74-year-old neighbor, who was backing out of his driveway before I finished explaining. I got Ruth to the hospital. I sat beside her while a cardiologist told us she had suffered a mild cardiac event that could have become something much worse. I held her hand while she apologized for making such a fuss, and 8 hours later, when she finally asked whether Vanessa was coming, I told her the truth. She had wedding plans with Brooke. My mother was silent for a long time. Then she said something I did not understand until Thanksgiving. "That's all right, Danny. Some people only know who family is when they need something." 10 months later, my wife would raise a glass at my mother's Thanksgiving table and announce that after Christmas, Ruth would be transitioning into a senior community so my stepdaughter and her new husband could move into the house. My mother had never agreed to move. I had never agreed to give anyone her house. But Brooke smiled like the bedrooms were already hers, and Vanessa said, "Ruth has had her life. Brooke and Tyler are trying to start theirs." That was the moment I finally understood what my mother had meant in the hospital. When Ruth's heart was in trouble, she was your mother, not mine. When her paid-off 4-bedroom house became useful, suddenly everybody remembered they were family. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 56 when this happened, and for 14 years I had confused being a peaceful husband with being a good husband. They are not the same thing. Peace requires honesty. What I practiced was avoidance. I had become an expert at absorbing discomfort so nobody else had to. Vanessa had a sharp comment? Let it go. Brooke needed money after missing a deadline? Help her. Mom sounded hurt after Vanessa skipped another Sunday dinner? Change the subject. Holiday tension? Smile. Pay. Carry something. Fix something. Make another plate. I told myself I was protecting the people I loved from conflict. In reality, I was teaching everyone that the fastest way to keep me in the family was to make me responsible for everybody's comfort except my own. I grew up in Worthington, Ohio, just north of Columbus. My father, Harold Mercer, worked for the city water department for 37 years. Mom was a school secretary at the same elementary school for almost 3 decades. We were middle class in the old-fashioned sense. Dad fixed things instead of replacing them. Mom kept Christmas wrapping paper from one year to the next. We ate out on birthdays and maybe once a month if Dad had gotten overtime. But I never remember feeling poor. Our house was always warm. The refrigerator was always full. Somebody always came to your baseball game, even if it meant sitting in freezing rain with a thermos of coffee. My parents were not dramatic people. They loved through repetition. Dad checked the oil in my first car every Saturday until I moved out. Mom called when snow started, even when I was 40. Roads are bad. I know, Mom. People drive too fast. I know. Call me when you're home. I always did. When Dad died from a stroke 12 years before this story, Ruth was 69. She grieved quietly. Too quietly. Probably. She sold his fishing boat because she said it made the garage feel like he was about to come home and use it. She kept everything else. His Cleveland Guardians cap hung on the same hook for years. His workbench stayed exactly the way he left it. She learned online banking at 70 because she refused to let me manage her life. "You can help me understand it," she said. "You cannot do it for me." That was Ruth. Help was welcome. Control was not. She remained independent, drove herself, volunteered at the church food pantry twice a month, went to water aerobics, played cards on Tuesdays with 3 women who had all known one another since the Nixon administration. She lived in the same 4-bedroom colonial where I grew up. The mortgage had been paid off years earlier. The yard was smaller than people imagined because the house sat on an older lot, but it was still more than she needed. She knew that. She simply was not ready to leave. Maybe someday, she would say. But someday is not the same thing as somebody deciding for me. I met Vanessa when I was 41. I had never married. Not because I was against marriage. Life just happened in an unremarkable order. I worked as the facilities operations supervisor for a school district outside Columbus. I managed building maintenance, transportation facilities, emergency repairs, custodial contracts, renovation projects, and all the exciting things people only notice when they fail. I dated. Had 2 long relationships. Neither turned into marriage. Then a friend invited me to a charity softball tournament where Vanessa was helping run registration. She was 38, divorced, funny, confident, and able to make a person feel like the only interesting human being in the room. I fell hard. Vanessa worked in medical device sales. She traveled, dressed beautifully, knew every good restaurant in Columbus, and had a 15-year-old daughter named Brooke. Brooke's father lived in Indianapolis and saw her inconsistently. Vanessa had raised her mostly alone. I admired that. I also walked straight into a family system I did not understand. Brooke was smart, pretty, emotional, and accustomed to her mother moving mountains before Brooke had fully articulated the problem. Forgotten project? Vanessa drove it to school. Friendship crisis? Dinner plans canceled. College application due? Vanessa sat up until 2 in the morning proofreading. Brooke was not spoiled in the cartoon sense. She was kind to waiters. She loved animals. She worked during college. She sent thank you cards. But she had been raised with a deep assumption that if something mattered to her, the household would reorganize itself accordingly. I did not see that as a warning. I saw it as a chance to be useful. There is that word again. I had no children of my own. Brooke was 15 when I met her, 17 when Vanessa and I married. I tried very hard not to become the stepfather who arrived announcing rules. I attended school events, helped with her first car, taught her to change a tire, although Vanessa later signed her up for roadside assistance because Brooke is never going to do that on the side of a highway. I helped with college tuition when her father fell behind. When she graduated from Ohio State, I paid off the remaining $6,000 on her student loan as a gift. I did it privately. Vanessa told everyone later that we helped Brooke graduate debt-free, which technically was true even though we had come from my savings. I did not correct her. Brooke called me dad occasionally. The first time she did it, I went into the garage afterward and cried where nobody could see me. I loved that girl. That matters. If I did not love her, none of what happened later would have hurt the way it did. Ruth embraced Brooke almost immediately. She never used the word step-granddaughter. That's Daniel's girl, she told people. When Brooke was 16, Ruth took her shopping for a homecoming dress after Vanessa had a work trip. When Brooke graduated high school, Ruth gave her the pearl necklace Dad had bought for their 30th anniversary. I actually objected. Mom, that's yours. Yes. You love that necklace. Yes. Then keep it. Ruth looked at me as if I had become slow. Danny, the point of loving something is not to die holding it. Brooke cried when she received it. Hugged Ruth. Promised she would wear it at her wedding someday. Years later, when Brooke got engaged, she did exactly that during engagement photographs. Ruth saw the photos online and called me crying because the necklace was visible. Look at that. I see it. Your father would have loved that. Vanessa's relationship with Ruth was never openly terrible in the beginning. It was more like a sweater that never fit correctly. Too tight in some places, loose in others, annoying enough that you notice, but not enough to throw away. Ruth was direct. Vanessa was polished. Ruth believed people should say what they meant. Vanessa believed tone mattered as much as truth. Ruth thought Sundays were for eating at a table. Vanessa liked brunch reservations. Ruth reused gift bags. Vanessa coordinated wrapping paper. None of that should have mattered. The problem was, Vanessa interpreted difference as judgment. If Ruth said, "You don't need to bring wine," "I already have some," Vanessa heard. "Your contribution isn't needed." If Ruth said, "Brooke can stay here while you travel," Vanessa heard, "You're failing as a mother." If Ruth asked why we had financed a new SUV when our old one still ran, Vanessa heard, "You are irresponsible." Sometimes Ruth could be blunt. I will not pretend otherwise. Once, after Vanessa bought an expensive outdoor dining set while we were discussing replacing our roof, Ruth said, "That table better know how to patch shingles." I laughed. Vanessa did not. I should have told Ruth to ease up sometimes. I did. What I should also have done was refuse to let Vanessa turn every disagreement into proof that Ruth disliked her. Instead, I became translator. Mom didn't mean it like that. Vanessa's just stressed. Can we not make this a thing? Everybody loves everybody. Nothing destroys honesty faster than insisting everybody loves everybody when the behavior says something more complicated. Over the years, Vanessa stopped coming to many Sunday dinners. She said her job was exhausting. Fair. She had friends. Fair. Her mother lived 2 hours south and needed attention too. Fair. But when Ruth had hip replacement surgery, Vanessa visited once for 20 minutes with flowers and then asked me afterward whether we could please not turn this into a 6-week family project. I took Mom to physical therapy, bought groceries, changed sheets. Brooke came twice. Once with me, once alone. Ruth noticed. She never complained. When Dad's old friend died, Vanessa skipped the funeral because she had a spa weekend planned. I barely knew him. True. When Ruth had the flu 2 Christmases before the hospital scare, Vanessa got angry because I left her family's dinner early to check on Mom. She has neighbors. She's 79 with a fever. Daniel, you cannot run every time she feels bad. I went anyway. Vanessa did not speak to me until the next afternoon. I apologized. That is embarrassing to admit now. I apologized for checking on my sick mother. Not because Vanessa demanded those exact words, because silence made me uncomfortable. An apology was the cheapest way I knew to restore normal. That is how unhealthy dynamics survive. Not always through screaming, sometimes through whoever hates tension most paying the fee. Brooke grew up, became a dental hygienist, and moved into a nice apartment in Dublin. She dated Tyler Hayes, a civil engineer, for almost 3 years before they got engaged. Tyler was steady, soft-spoken, came from a large family in Dayton. His parents, Scott and Marianne, had been married 34 years. Vanessa liked them immediately because they were comfortable financially and socially. Marianne ran a nonprofit arts program. Scott owned part of an engineering consultancy. They had a lake condo in Michigan, took European trips, and hosted big family holidays. Vanessa became intensely focused on making our family look equally established. I noticed it. I teased her. You know Scott doesn't care what kind of cheese board we own. I know. Then she bought a new cheese board. Brooke's wedding became the biggest project our family had ever undertaken. Vineyard venue outside Granville. 180 guests. Live band. Custom invitations. Bridesmaid proposal boxes. Champagne wall. A rehearsal dinner Vanessa insisted should be memorable. Brooke and Tyler were paying part. Tyler's parents were helping. Vanessa and I committed $22,000. That was more than I wanted to spend, but I loved Brooke and could afford it from savings. One daughter, one wedding, Vanessa said. I did not correct daughter. I liked hearing it. Ruth contributed $2,000 for Brooke's dress alterations and gave her a set of vintage crystal glasses that had belonged to my grandmother. Something old, she said. Brooke hugged her. Vanessa posted a photograph captioned, 3 generations of women making wedding memories. Ruth shared it. That mattered later because 6 months after that post, Vanessa would say Ruth was not really her family when family became inconvenient. My truck broke down 3 weeks before Thanksgiving. Transmission problem. The mechanic said 4 or 5 days. Vanessa's SUV sat in the driveway. We also had an older sedan Brooke had borrowed and never returned permanently, though the title was still ours. Wednesday morning at 7:11, Ruth called. I was standing in the kitchen buttering toast. Danny, her voice sounded wrong. What's going on? My chest feels strange. Everything inside me sharpened. Strange how? Tight, maybe indigestion. Any pain? Not exactly. Arm, long pause. My left hand is tingling a little. I was already moving. Unlock your front door and sit down. Don't make a fuss. Mom, I'm probably fine. Sit down. I went upstairs. Vanessa was getting ready. She had a remote work day, then Brooke's final dress fitting at noon, followed by lunch with Marianne and bridesmaids. I asked for her keys. You know the rest. Call an ambulance. She's scared. Then call someone else. Vanessa, I need your car for maybe an hour. I have plans. My mother may be having a heart attack. She looked straight at me. She's your mother, Daniel, not mine. Figure it out. People sometimes ask when a marriage ends. There is the legal answer, the moving out answer, the moment somebody removes the ring, but there is usually an earlier answer, a private second when something inside you stops trying to explain away what it just saw. That was mine. I called Henry Alvarez, Ruth's neighbor. 74, retired mail carrier, widower, owner of a 12-year-old Toyota Camry, kept cleaner than most surgical rooms. Henry, Mom's having chest pain. My truck's in the shop. Can you? I'm getting my keys. No pause. No explanation. I called Ruth back. Henry's coming. I'll meet you there. I don't want to bother him. He's already in the car. Oh! Then softly, that's kind. Kindness becomes very visible when you have just witnessed its opposite. Henry picked me up first, then Ruth. She came to the door wearing her good navy coat over pajamas, because apparently heart trouble was no excuse to be seen in public improperly dressed. She apologized to Henry 3 times before we reached Ohio Health Riverside Methodist Hospital. Rebecca, he finally said, if you apologize again, I'm charging you gas money. She laughed. I held her hand in the back seat. At the ER, they moved quickly because of her age and symptoms. EKG, blood work, imaging, questions. Ruth kept saying she felt foolish. I kept telling her to stop. At one point, a nurse asked who had driven her. Ruth said, my son and my good neighbor. Then she looked toward the door. His wife had work. I said nothing. Around 11, a cardiologist named Dr. Shaw came in and explained that Ruth had experienced unstable angina with a small rise in cardiac enzymes. Not a major heart attack, but close enough that he wanted to keep her overnight, adjust medication, and schedule more testing. You came at the right time, he said. Ruth looked at me. See, you did make a fuss. Best fuss of my life. She smiled. I texted Vanessa at 11:18. Mom had a mild cardiac event. Stable. Staying overnight. Read at 11:19. No response. At 12:42, Brooke texted, Mom told me Grandma Ruth is in hospital. Is she okay? Grandma Ruth. I appreciated that. Stable, thanks. Brooke sent a heart. Vanessa sent nothing. At 2:06, Mom asked, where's Vanessa? I considered lying. That was my old reflex. Protect everyone from everyone else's behavior. Dress fitting with Brooke. Ruth looked at me. She couldn't come before? No. Did she know what was happening? Yes. Ruth looked at the window. Did you have her car? I could not answer immediately. Mothers know silence. She wouldn't let you take it. Not a question. Mom. Danny, I sighed. She had plans. Ruth was quiet for nearly a minute. Then she said, that's all right. No, it isn't. She looked at me. Some people only know who family is when they need something. What does that mean? Nothing you need to solve today. She patted my hand. Go eat. I stayed until evening. Henry picked me up again because apparently I had married someone who would not loan me an SUV, but lived beside a man willing to become my driver for free. When I got home, Vanessa was in the kitchen drinking wine. How is she? Stable. Good. I waited. That's it? She looked confused. What do you want me to say? Maybe ask what happened. You said mild cardiac event. She could have had a heart attack. Vanessa put down the glass. Daniel, I told you to call an ambulance. I did not prevent her from getting medical care. I asked to borrow a car we both pay for. You knew I had plans. My mother's arm was numb, and she got to the hospital. There it was. Outcome is moral defense. Because disaster was avoided, cruelty supposedly disappeared. Henry drove us. Great. He's 74. Vanessa rolled her eyes. What is your point? My point is a man who owes my mother nothing moved faster than my wife. She stared. Do not do that. Do what? Turn me into some monster because I didn't want Rebecca's anxiety controlling another day. Anxiety. I felt my chest go cold. She had a cardiac event. We know that now. Her arm was numb. You are obsessed with that detail because normal adults are. Vanessa's face hardened. You always choose her. I almost laughed. This is about choosing sides. It is always about choosing sides with you and Rebecca. You just pretend it isn't. She has never asked me to choose her over you. She doesn't need to. You volunteer. I should have walked away. Instead, I said something I regret because it was meant to wound. Maybe because she acts like family. Vanessa flinched. Then go live with her. I looked at my wife. Really looked. 14 years. Trips. Birthdays. Sunday mornings. Arguments resolved by me apologizing. Brooke graduating. Dad dying. Vanessa holding me at the funeral while I cried. Good memories do not evaporate because somebody reveals an ugly part of themselves. That is what makes leaving hard. If everything had been bad, there would have been nothing to grieve. I'm going back to the hospital in the morning, I said. Do whatever you want. She picked up her wine. I slept in the guest room. Thursday morning, Henry drove me again, even though I protested. You have a wife with a car, he said. Apparently the car has boundaries. I laughed despite myself. Don't make me like you today. Too late. Ruth looked better. Color back. Crossword puzzle open. She made me find a 7-letter word for unwanted interruption. Nuisance. 8. Problem. 7. That's 6. You need breakfast. She smiled. After 20 minutes, she closed the puzzle. Danny. I knew that voice. Yeah? I want you to listen without protecting anybody. I leaned back. Okay. Vanessa doesn't like me. Mom, you failed immediately. I smiled reluctantly. Sorry. She doesn't like me. That is allowed. You're my mother. People are allowed not to like your mother. She married me. She did not take a blood oath to enjoy my potato salad. That was Ruth. But dislike and disrespect are different things. I said nothing. I have ignored a lot because I love you. I ignored her skipping your father's memorial lunch because she was tired. I ignored the joke she made after my hip surgery about you becoming my part-time husband. I ignored Christmas. I ignored the way she rolls her eyes when I ask you to help with something. Mom, I am not blaming you. That was worse. I let it happen. Yes, direct. Why didn't you say something? Because every mother eventually learns that criticizing her son's wife is a fast way to lose her son. You wouldn't lose me. I didn't know that. That hurt. Yesterday answered it. What? You came. My eyes burned. Ruth touched my hand. But Danny, coming to me is not the whole problem. I watched you leave yourself behind for years to keep that woman comfortable. I looked away. She's not all bad. I did not say she was. She loves Brooke. Very much. She's been there for me. Sometimes. Mom, see what you're doing? I stopped. Defending. Translating. Managing the narrative. Yeah. I'm not asking you to divorce your wife because she didn't loan you a car. Good. I'm asking you to stop calling patterns accidents. That sentence followed me for months. Ruth came home Friday. I picked her up in my truck, which the mechanic had finished early. Vanessa called twice while I was helping Ruth settle. I ignored both. She texted, "We need to talk." Brooke's stressed because everyone is fighting before Thanksgiving. Everyone. There were 2 people in conflict, but somehow Brooke's wedding stress entered the room. I stayed with Ruth until evening. We organized medication. I made soup. She complained I cut carrots too large. Normality felt holy. Before I left, she said, "Vanessa sent me a message." What? Ruth handed me her phone. Vanessa, glad you're feeling better. We were all worried. Brooke has her final fitting photos if you want to see them. Beautiful. We were all worried. I almost threw the phone. Ruth took it back. Don't. She couldn't even apologize. People apologize according to how much truth they can tolerate. That sounds like something from your church group, actually Facebook. I laughed. You're dangerous online. I know. Sunday dinner was usually at Mom's. Vanessa did not come. Brooke did, alone. Tyler was visiting his parents. Brooke brought flowers and a grocery bag. Mom said you can't have too much salt. Ruth looked inside. Did she send low-sodium soup? Yes. Your mother does love a theme, Brooke laughed. She hugged Ruth gently. You scared me. Sorry. Don't apologize. Brooke looked at me. Dad says that too. That mattered. During dinner, Brooke asked what happened Wednesday. I told the basic version. Ruth gave me a look that said basic was cowardly. Brooke noticed. What? Nothing. Grandma Ruth. Ruth said, your mother had plans. Brooke's face tightened. I know. Did she tell you Dad asked for the car? Silence. I looked at Brooke. You knew? Afterward. What did she say? That you were being dramatic and Henry drove you. My appetite disappeared. Brooke looked ashamed. I told her that sounded bad. Did you? Yes. What did she say? That you always make Grandma an emergency. Ruth put down her fork. I have been an emergency twice in 14 years. Once when I had hip surgery and once when my heart misbehaved. I apologize for the burden. Brooke's eyes filled. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean... I know, sweetheart. Ruth softened immediately. You didn't say it. Brooke cried anyway. Mom thinks you judge her. Sometimes I do. I stared. Ruth continued. I judge everybody. It is one of aging's few remaining hobbies. Brooke laughed through tears. But I love her because Daniel loves her. I have tried to make room for her. Maybe I failed sometimes. You didn't. Brooke looked toward me. Mom gets weird about you too. I know. She thinks Dad always puts you first, Ruth said quietly. Did he put me first Wednesday? Yes. Good. Somebody was supposed to. Brooke nodded. Yeah. Then she changed the subject to wedding flowers. That Sunday was the first moment I realized Brooke was not simply an extension of Vanessa. She had learned entitlement from the system, yes. She had benefited from my silence. But she could still feel shame. That gave me hope. Thanksgiving was 9 days away. Usually Vanessa hosted at our house. This year Ruth had insisted on hosting because she wanted one holiday where nobody serves me cardiac-approved gelatin. I had tried to talk her out of it. She refused. I can sit at my own table while other people cook. Vanessa took over planning almost immediately. Group texts, menu spreadsheets, centerpieces. Ruth should rest, so I'll manage everything. Sounds kind, right? Then the group messages changed. Vanessa wrote, "This may be our last Thanksgiving in the old house, so let's make it special." I stared at that line. Last Thanksgiving? Ruth had never said she was moving. I called Vanessa. What does that mean? What? Last Thanksgiving in the old house. Daniel, be realistic. She had a cardiac event. And? She cannot live there forever. She lives there now. I said eventually. You said last Thanksgiving. Maybe not literally. Then why write it? She sighed. Because we need to start talking about next steps. Who is we? The family. The family including Mom? Silence. Of course. Have you discussed this with her? Not yet. Then stop announcing transitions she hasn't agreed to. You are so sensitive since the hospital. My mother's heart nearly failed while you protected a lunch reservation. Silence. That is unfair. Is it inaccurate? She hung up. The next day Brooke called. Dad, can we talk? Sure. Mom says you're upset about the house. What house? Grandma Ruth's. My stomach tightened. What about it? She said you think Tyler and I shouldn't consider moving there. I almost dropped the phone. Moving where? Silence. Brooke. Mom said you knew. Knew what? That after the wedding, if Grandma transitioned somewhere smaller, Tyler and I could live there for a while. I sat down. Who told you Mom is moving? Vanessa. Grandma? No. May? No. Then why are you planning around it? Brooke became defensive. We're not planning, we're discussing. Are there bedrooms you've talked about using? Silence. Brooke, the upstairs rooms. Have you talked about rent? Dad, stop interrogating me. Have you talked about how long you'd stay? Maybe 2 years? To save. In my mother's house. It's family property. There it was. No, it is Ruth's property. I know. Do you? Why are you acting like we're trying to steal it? Because the woman who owns it does not know she's moving. Mom said Grandma can't safely be alone. A doctor did not say that. She had a heart thing, and now she's walking a mile at cardiac rehab. Dad, Tyler and I are trying to start a family. Houses are expensive. I know. Grandma has 4 bedrooms. I know. She doesn't need all that space. I closed my eyes. Need is not ownership. I didn't say it was. Then stop counting her rooms. Brooke became quiet. I thought you'd be happy we wanted to stay close. I would be happy if this were Ruth's idea. Mom said she'd come around. That sentence ended the conversation. Brooke, listen carefully. You do not build a future on somebody else coming around to giving up their home. Fine. And do not discuss this with Ruth until I do. Why? To control the story? Because she had a cardiac event 10 days ago and should not discover at Thanksgiving that people have already assigned her bedroom. Brooke hung up angry. I called Vanessa immediately. Did you tell Brooke she could move into Mom's house? Could, not would. Did you tour senior apartments? Silence. Vanessa. 2. My vision actually blurred. Without Mom. I was gathering information. Why? Because somebody has to plan. She plans her own life. Daniel, she is 81. Not dead. I didn't say dead. You're distributing her house. Oh my God. You told Brooke they could live there. Temporarily. You toured places to move my mother. Independent living. Not a nursing home. Did Ruth ask? No. Did I ask? No. Then whose problem are you solving? Vanessa shouted. Ours. Silence. There it was. What problem? I asked. She was breathing hard. Brooke and Tyler are drowning in rent. They want kids. Ruth cannot stay alone indefinitely. We're spending more and more time helping her. It makes sense. We? You. Exactly. That affects our marriage. Then talk to me about our marriage. Do not relocate my mother. You always do this. You make me sound horrible. I'm repeating your plan. Because you leave out context. What context makes it okay to promise someone's home before asking them? She had no answer. Then she said, You're not Brooke's real father. Maybe that's why you don't understand how much parents are supposed to sacrifice for their children. I went completely silent. Vanessa knew immediately. Daniel, I didn't mean... You said it. I'm angry. So was I Wednesday. I didn't tell you Brooke wasn't my daughter. I'm sorry. No. What? Do not apologize because the sentence scared you. Think about why it was available to you. I hung up. I slept at Ruth's house that night, not dramatically. I texted Vanessa. I need space. Staying with mom. She sent 12 messages. You're overreacting. We need to discuss this like married adults. You are letting Rebecca manipulate you. Brooke is devastated. You are destroying wedding memories. Please come home. Then, I'm sorry about the real father comment. Then, you know I didn't mean it. Then, do not punish Brooke because you're angry at me. I answered one message. I'm not punishing anyone. I'm stopping decisions that were never yours to make. Ruth knew something was wrong as soon as I arrived with an overnight bag. How bad? Vanessa toured independent living places for you. Ruth stared. For me. Yes. Was I there? No. That seems inefficient. I laughed despite everything, then told her about Brooke in the house. Ruth listened without interrupting. When I finished, she sat at the kitchen table with both hands around tea. Do they think I'm leaving after Christmas? Apparently. Interesting. Mom, I'm thinking. You should be furious. Why? Because, Danny, anger is expensive. I'm on a fixed income. That was Mom. What do you want to do? Nothing tonight. Thanksgiving? Still here. Are you sure? Absolutely. Vanessa's going to make an announcement. I can feel it. Ruth smiled. Then let her. Mom, sometimes people need enough rope to show everyone what they were building. That sounds vindictive. No. Vindictive would be putting laxatives in the pie. I stared. You've thought about this. I'm old, not boring. Thanksgiving morning, I arrived at Ruth's house at 9. By agreement, not assumption. Mom had already made coffee. She sat while I handled turkey prep. Henry brought folding chairs. My Aunt Carol brought rolls. Brooke and Tyler arrived at 11. Brooke looked nervous. She hugged Ruth longer than usual. Ruth said nothing about the house. Tyler did not know. I could tell from the way he talked about renewing their apartment lease. Landlord offered 12 months at a small increase. Brooke cut him off. We're still discussing options. Tyler looked confused. What options? Vanessa arrived at noon with flowers, wine, and an energy that told me she had decided we would behave normally through force. She kissed Ruth on the cheek. How are you feeling? Aleve. Vanessa laughed too brightly. Good. Then she turned to me. Can we speak privately? Later. Daniel. Today is Mom's Thanksgiving. Her jaw tightened. Fine. 20 people came. Family, Brooke and Tyler. Tyler's parents, Aunt Carol, cousins, Henry. Vanessa had invited Mary Ann and Scott Hayes because she wanted both families together. Ruth knew them and liked them. Dinner was crowded, warm. For almost an hour, normal. That is what makes family explosions strange. Somebody is always passing butter 5 minutes before history changes. Tyler complimented Ruth's house. I love the built-ins. Harold made those. Really? Everything crooked in this house was your grandfather's work. Brooke laughed. Ruth smiled. Vanessa began talking about how difficult large homes become at a certain age. My shoulders tightened. Ruth kept eating. Mary Ann said, My mother downsized last year and loves her condo. Vanessa looked at Ruth. Exactly. Ruth said, Good for her. Vanessa laughed. You should see the place I toured near Dublin. Beautiful dining room, fitness center, activities, Mary Ann said. You toured it? Ruth buttered a roll. Apparently. Silence. Vanessa froze. Tyler looked at Brooke. I stared at my plate because Mom had clearly chosen her battlefield. Ruth. I mentioned I was gathering options. No, dear. Daniel mentioned it, Brooke whispered. Mom. Vanessa immediately shifted. I was trying to help. Ruth smiled. Help usually begins with a question. Henry coughed into his napkin to hide a laugh. We moved on, barely. Dessert arrived. Pumpkin pie, pecan, Ruth's apple crisp. Coffee. Then Vanessa stood with her wine glass. Before everyone scatters, I wanted to say something. My body went cold. Ruth looked at me and gave the tiniest shake of her head. Let her. Vanessa smiled around the table. This year has reminded us how quickly life changes. She looked at Ruth. We almost had a terrible scare, and I think everybody realizes we have to make thoughtful choices before emergencies make them for us. Ruth's face did not move. Vanessa continued. Brooke and Tyler are beginning their marriage, hopefully starting a family soon, and Ruth is entering a stage where she deserves less responsibility and more community. Tyler turned toward Brooke. What is this? Vanessa ignored him. So we've been discussing a plan that actually solves two problems beautifully. After the holidays, Ruth could transition into a wonderful, independent living community near us, where she'd have activities, transportation, meals, and support. Then Brooke and Tyler could stay here for a couple of years while they save for a home. The house stays in the family, Ruth gets peace of mind, and the next generation gets a start. Complete silence. My mother took one sip of coffee, set the cup down. Who is we? Vanessa's smile faltered. The family. Which family? Ruth. I'm serious, Vanessa laughed nervously. Daniel and I, Brooke. Daniel did not agree, I said. Heads turned. Brooke? Tyler looked at his fiancée. You knew? Brooke's face went pale. We talked. You told me we were renewing our lease. I didn't know if Grandma... Ruth raised one finger. First, Brooke, sweetheart, you may call me Grandma. I love that. But do not use Grandma to make this plan sound sweeter. Brooke started crying. Vanessa jumped in. Nobody is forcing anything. Ruth looked at her. You just announced my moving date at Thanksgiving. I said could. After the holidays. It was a proposal. In front of 20 people. Vanessa's face reddened. I was trying to get everyone comfortable with the idea. Ruth smiled sadly. Everyone except me. Mary Ann Hayes looked horrified. Scott stared at Tyler. Henry leaned back with both arms folded. Vanessa said, Ruth, you had a cardiac event. Yes. You cannot keep pretending nothing changed. I changed medication. That's not what I mean. Then say what you mean. Vanessa hesitated. Brooke whispered, Mom, stop. But Vanessa was committed now. This house is too much for you. Daniel is constantly coming here. We all worry. Ruth looked around the table. Who is all? Nobody answered. Henry? No, ma'am. Carol? My aunt shook her head. No. Ruth looked at me. Danny? No. Then at Brooke. Brooke cried. I thought it could work. For whom? Brooke whispered. Us. Ruth nodded. Thank you for being honest. Vanessa said. This is ridiculous. Ruth, you have had your life here. Brooke and Tyler need a future. Something in the room broke. My mother went completely still. So did I. Tyler whispered, Jesus. Brooke looked at Vanessa in disbelief. Vanessa realized too late how the sentence sounded. That's not what I meant. I heard my own voice before I decided to speak. It is exactly what you meant. Vanessa looked at me. Daniel, when Mom's arm was numb, you said she was my mother, not yours. The entire table went silent. Brooke covered her mouth. Vanessa's face drained. Do not do this here. Why not? You just made her housing announcement here. That was private. You said it in front of 20 people. Daniel, she was not your family when she needed a ride to the hospital. But now that Brooke wants 4 bedrooms and no rent, suddenly Mom's house is family property. That is disgusting. Which part? You're twisting things. Then untwist them. She stared. I continued, calm because anger had burned itself into something cleaner. Did I ask for your SUV Wednesday? Yes. Did I tell you Mom had chest pain and numbness? Yes. Did you say she's your mother, not mine? Vanessa looked around the table. Nobody saved her. I was stressed. Did you say it? Yes. Brooke started crying harder. Mom, Vanessa snapped. You knew I didn't mean it literally. Brooke whispered. You told me Dad was being dramatic. Tyler looked at Brooke. What? Brooke turned. I didn't know how serious it was. Ruth said gently, None of this is your fault, sweetheart. Then she looked at Vanessa. But this part is important. I was not family when I was inconvenient. I became family again when you needed my address. Vanessa sat down slowly. That is not fair. Ruth's voice remained calm. Fair is a word people enjoy using when another person finally says no. I almost smiled because that was very Ruth. I am not moving after Christmas. Vanessa opened her mouth. Ruth raised one hand. I am not finished. Vanessa closed it. I may move someday. I am 81. Stairs are not improving with age. But when I move, I will choose the place. I will choose the date. I will decide what happens to this house. Daniel will help because I ask him, not because I require him to sacrifice his marriage every Tuesday. That last sentence hit me. Mom, you too. She pointed at me. You have been trying to save everybody from the consequences of their own behavior since you were 12. A few relatives laughed softly. I did not. You thought keeping quiet protected me. It didn't. It protected the people being rude to me. Vanessa said, Ruth, I have never been rude to you. Ruth looked at her. You toured places to send me without asking me. Silence. You discussed giving my bedroom to Brooke. Brooke whispered, I never asked for your bedroom. Ruth turned toward her. Did you discuss using it? Brooke nodded slowly. Yes. Then you participated. That does not make you evil. It makes you responsible. Brooke sobbed. Tyler moved his hand away from hers. Not dramatically, just enough that she noticed. Vanessa looked at me. Say something. I am. Defend your wife. There it was. The old command hidden inside marriage. Fix the room. Protect Vanessa from consequences. I have been doing that for 14 years. Her eyes widened. What? Defending you. Translating you. Telling Mom you didn't mean things. Telling Brooke you were stressed. Telling myself that keeping peace was more important than asking whether anybody was behaving decently. So now, you're turning against me? No. I'm standing still. You're finally seeing where everyone else actually is. Vanessa started crying. I cannot believe this. Brooke suddenly stood. Stop making yourself the victim. Everybody stared at her. Vanessa looked shocked. Excuse me? Brooke wiped tears from her face. You told me Grandma would come around. You told me Dad agreed. I said Daniel understood why it made sense. That is not agreed. You wanted this too. Yes. Brooke's voice cracked. I did, because rent is ridiculous, and I wanted a house, and I kept thinking if Grandma moved somewhere nice, nobody was really losing. Ruth nodded. There, that is honest. Brooke looked at her. I'm sorry. Thank you. I should have asked you. Yes. I don't want your house. Ruth smiled sadly. Right now you don't. That is because wanting it hurts. We will talk again when you're feeling settled. Tyler stood too. I need to say something. Vanessa muttered. Wonderful. Tyler ignored her. I didn't know any of this. Brooke told me her grandmother might choose to downsize and there was a chance we could rent the house from family. Ruth looked at Brooke. Brooke nodded, ashamed. Tyler continued. I would never have agreed to move in if I knew the plan depended on convincing you to leave. Thank you, Ruth said. And Brooke, we need to talk later. She nodded. Vanessa laughed bitterly. So everybody gets to judge me now. I looked at my wife. Nobody needs to judge you. Your choices are sitting on the table. What do you want from me? Nothing tonight. That scared her more than a demand. What does that mean? It means Thanksgiving is over for us. I stood. Danielle, I'm staying here tonight. You are leaving me because of your mother's house? No. I looked at her. I am leaving the room because I no longer trust myself to keep speaking without becoming cruel. Ruth nodded slightly. Good choice. And Vanessa? What? I'm not paying the remaining wedding extras. Brooke's head snapped up. Dad. I committed $22,000. The committed expenses remain. I am not taking money back. But the extra $10,000 Vanessa asked me to add for the upgraded rehearsal dinner and honeymoon fund? No. Vanessa stared. You're punishing Brooke. No. I'm refusing to finance a family celebration while being told I'm not her real father, and while my mother's home is being treated like part of the wedding package. Brooke cried. I didn't say you weren't my dad. No. Your mother did. I don't believe that, Vanessa said quickly. I was angry. Brooke looked at her. You said that? Vanessa said nothing. Brooke sat down. Oh my God. I hated the pain on her face. Brooke, listen to me. She looked at me. I love you. Then why? Because love is not the same as unlimited access to my money, my time, or Ruth's house. She cried. Are you still coming to the wedding? If I'm invited as your father and not your sponsor. That sentence silenced the room. Brooke whispered, You are my dad. Then we'll figure the rest out. I took my coat. Henry offered to drive me somewhere until he remembered I had my truck. Ruth said, You're sleeping upstairs. I nodded. Vanessa remained at the table crying. I did not feel victorious. Anybody who tells you boundaries feel powerful every time is selling something. Sometimes they feel like ripping your own shirt to stop bleeding. Necessary, messy, painful. That night I slept in my childhood bedroom for the first time in 28 years. The wallpaper was gone, but the closet still had marks where Dad measured my height. At 10 inches the morning, my phone had 31 messages. Vanessa, you humiliated me. Your mother planned this. Brooke is devastated. You are destroying our marriage. I said one terrible thing. Please come home. I'm sorry. I mean it. We need counseling. Please answer. Brooke, Dad, I'm sorry. I love you. I don't care about the house. Tyler is furious. Please don't think I used you for money. Tyler, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. Brooke and I are talking. Mom had sent nothing because Mom was asleep 10 feet away, probably more peacefully than any of us. I responded only to Brooke. I love you. We'll talk tomorrow. Get some sleep. To Vanessa, I am safe. I need space. We'll speak Monday. Sunday came. Then Monday. I stayed with Ruth for 4 days, not because she required care, because I needed somewhere my nervous system was not waiting for the next demand. We went to cardiac rehab. She beat me at cards. Henry came over with soup. I discovered my mother had a more active social life at 81 than I had at 56. On Monday afternoon, I met Vanessa at a coffee shop because I did not want our first conversation inside the house. She arrived wearing no makeup, hair tied back, looking older. I felt an ache because I loved her. Love rarely switches off at the speed respect does. I'm sorry, she said immediately. For which part? She winced. All of it. That's too broad. She nodded. For refusing the car. Okay. For saying Ruth wasn't my mother. Okay. For planning senior living without talking to her. Okay. For telling Brooke the house could be hers. Okay. For saying you weren't Brooke's real father. Her voice broke. That was unforgivable. Maybe not. She looked surprised. But it was revealing, she cried. I don't believe it. Then why was it available when you wanted to hurt me? I don't know. I think you do. We sat in silence. Finally, she said, Because Brooke is mine. I stared. And Ruth is yours. Yes. And me? Vanessa looked at me. You're my husband. What does that mean in your system? She cried harder. I don't know. That is the problem. She covered her face. I felt like I was always competing with your mother. She never asked me to choose. That made it worse. Explain. She didn't have to ask. You went. Every time. When she needed help. Exactly. She could call and you moved. She rarely called. But you moved. Vanessa, my mother is 81. And I'm your wife. I never refused you medical care for lunch. She flinched. I know. Did you really think she had too much influence? Or were you angry that she had influence you couldn't control? Vanessa stared at me. That question landed. Maybe both. Why the house? Because Brooke is struggling. Brooke and Tyler make good money. Not enough for the life they want. That is different. I know. Do you? Now. She sighed. I wanted Brooke close. I wanted grandchildren near us. Ruth's house is 10 minutes away, good schools, paid off. It felt obvious. To whom? Me. And Mom became the inconvenience. Vanessa started crying again. Yes. Honesty hurt, but at least it was real. Do you love Ruth? She shook her head. Not the way you want. I never asked you to love her like I do. I care what happens to her. Wednesday? She looked down. I was angry. Because the dress fitting had already been moved twice because of family things. Because I had taken days off for Ruth's hip surgery years ago. One afternoon. I know. It felt like every time something happened, I lost. Lost what? Priority. There it was. So you needed my mother to become less important for you to feel more important. I hate how that sounds. So do I. She looked at me. Are we done? I could not answer. I don't know. Do you want to be? I want to stop living in a marriage where the people I love are competing for rank. That includes Ruth. Yes. And Brooke. Yes. And you? I laughed sadly. Apparently, I'm the only one who hasn't been ranking myself. Vanessa reached across the table. I did not take her hand. Counseling, she said. Please. I agreed. Not because I had decided to stay, because 14 years deserved an honest ending, even if ending was where we were headed. Counseling lasted 4 months. It did not save the marriage. It did something better. It clarified it. Vanessa admitted she had built much of her identity around being indispensable to Brooke and resented the way I remained indispensable to Ruth. She admitted she had always felt judged by Mom's frugality and directness. She admitted my steadiness had become something she assumed would survive anything. Daniel always comes back, she told the therapist during one session. Hearing it out loud changed me. I asked, did you ever wonder what coming back cost me? She cried. No, she had not. I admitted my side too. I used keeping peace as a substitute for intimacy. I apologized instead of telling the truth. I sometimes ran to practical problems because they were easier than emotional conflict. Fixing Ruth's gutter was simpler than asking Vanessa why she seemed resentful at dinner. I let Brooke depend on me because being called dad felt so good that I rarely risked disappointing her. I gave money before discussing expectations. I allowed everyone to think generosity had no limit because I was afraid limits might change how they loved me. That was mine. I owned it. But accountability does not mean splitting blame mathematically until nobody is responsible for the line they crossed. Vanessa refused a car during a medical emergency. She planned my mother's future without consent. She used my relationship to Brooke as a weapon when angry. I could understand why and still decide I did not want to rebuild a marriage on top of it. When I finally told her, she did not scream. We were sitting in the counselor's office. I think I want a divorce. Vanessa stared at the floor. Think? I know, she cried quietly. Do you hate me? No. That would be easier. Probably. Do you still love me? Yes. She looked up. Then why? Because love is no longer the question. What is? Whether I feel safe being honest with you. Whether I trust you with the people I love when they are inconvenient. Whether I can say no without becoming the enemy. She nodded slowly. And you don't? No. She wiped her face. I am sorry I taught you that. I am sorry I stayed silent long enough for it to become normal. We separated permanently. No dramatic courtroom, no war over furniture. I moved into a modest 2-bedroom townhouse in Worthington, halfway between work and Ruth. Vanessa kept our house and refinanced later. We divided things with more sadness than anger. I kept Dad's old tool chest, my books, a leather chair, and the grill because Vanessa never used it. She kept almost everything decorative because apparently 14 years of marriage had established that I could not be trusted with throw pillows. That joke was hers. It made me laugh. Grief is strange. People can hurt each other deeply and still know exactly how to make one another laugh. Brooke's relationship with me nearly broke before it improved. The week after Thanksgiving, she asked to meet alone. We went to a diner near Dublin. She arrived without Tyler. I need to know if you meant what you said. Which part? That you love me, I almost cried. Brooke, Mom said that real father thing. Your mother was angry. But maybe she said what you think too. No. I reached across the table. You are my daughter because we built that relationship. Not because I paid tuition or because you called me dad. You do not lose me because your mother and I divorce. She started sobbing. I used you. Sometimes. She looked stunned by the honesty. Dad, you asked. I'm sorry. I know. The wedding money, the money already committed stays. I don't want it. Then don't use it. No. I mean, I don't want money to be the thing between us. Good. Tyler and I canceled the rehearsal upgrade. Okay. And the honeymoon fund thing. Okay. We're paying the rest. Good. Are you proud of me? That question hit hard. Always. Even when I'm disappointed. She cried harder. Grandma Ruth said the same thing. She usually steals my best material. I apologized to her. How did she take it? Brooke smiled through tears. She said, "Good. Now never discuss my bedroom again." I laughed. "That sounds right." Tyler and I renewed our lease. Good. We're not moving into her house. Very good. Even if she moves someday. Excellent. She rolled her eyes. Stop enjoying this. I'm your father. Annoying you is one of my legal rights. She smiled. Still my dad? I thought we covered this. Say it. Still your dad? She reached across the table and hugged me awkwardly over 2 coffee cups. Tyler and Brooke postponed the wedding by 4 months. Not because they were breaking up, because Tyler had discovered how much of the wedding plan had been built around assumptions Brooke had not examined. They went to premarital counseling. Brooke later told me he asked her one question that changed her. When you say family helps family, who gets to decide which person is helping? She hated the question because the answer had usually been me. They married the following September. Smaller wedding, 120 guests instead of 180. The rehearsal dinner was at a restaurant, not Ruth's house. Ruth attended wearing a navy dress and the pearl earrings Dad gave her on their 40th anniversary. Brooke wore Ruth's necklace. During the ceremony, I walked Brooke halfway down the aisle. Her biological father walked the other half. That was Brooke's idea. When she first asked, she said, "I don't want anybody pretending only one man helped raise me." I cried for 3 days before the wedding and denied all allegations. At the reception, Brooke gave me a letter instead of a public speech. I read it alone in the hallway. "Dad, I used to think being loved meant the people who loved me would make things easier. You taught me something harder. Sometimes love is the person who refuses to let you become entitled. I am sorry I treated your time and money like family property. I am sorry I participated in planning Grandma Ruth's life like she was a problem to solve. Thank you for staying my dad after Mom stopped being your wife." I still have that letter. Ruth recovered well. Cardiac rehab made her stronger. For almost 2 years, she stayed in the house. No one brought up moving unless she did. Then, at 83, she called me one Tuesday and said, "I'm done with stairs." What happened? Nothing. I'm simply tired of carrying laundry like a pioneer woman. We toured condos together because she asked. She rejected 5. One because the kitchen cabinets were the color of wet cardboard. One because the elevator smelled weird. One because a man in the lobby complained too loudly about bingo. Finally, she chose a 2-bedroom condo near her church with a balcony, elevator, walking path, and a room big enough for her card table. "See," she said after signing the papers, "independent living. Technically, it's a condo." Exactly. She sold the old house to a young couple with 2 children. Brooke did not ask for it. Vanessa did not comment. I helped Mom pack. The last night we sat at the old kitchen table eating pizza. "You okay?" I asked. Ruth looked around. "I thought I'd die here." "You disappointed?" "No." She smiled. "Turns out living somewhere is better than dying there just to prove a point." Profound. Write it down. You know Vanessa once toured Willow Creek for you. "Don't ruin pizza." We laughed. Then she became serious. "You know I never changed my plans because of Vanessa." "I know. And I never needed to punish her." "I know." "Good. Mom?" "Yeah?" "Did you ever hate her?" Ruth thought. "No." "Really?" I was furious. "Different?" "Very. Hate would have required me to keep carrying her around." That was Ruth's philosophy. She did not reconcile with Vanessa in any meaningful way, but she also did not make hostility a hobby. At Brooke's wedding, they greeted each other politely. Ruth said, "You look lovely," Vanessa said. "So do you." That was enough. Years later, Vanessa sent Ruth flowers after a minor surgery. Ruth called me. "Your ex-wife sent tulips." "Nice." "Yellow. I prefer red." "Mom." I said thank you. Progress has many definitions. My relationship with Vanessa became distant but civil because Brooke kept us connected. We were not friends. We were 2 people who had shared 14 years and 1 daughter by choice. At first, every interaction felt like walking across thin ice. Then time thickened it. We attended birthdays, sat on opposite sides at holiday dinners, talked about Brooke, Tyler, eventually their baby. Vanessa did real work, counseling, apologies. She stopped framing the divorce as something my mother caused. That mattered. One afternoon, 3 years after we separated, we were both waiting outside the hospital after Brooke gave birth to a daughter. Vanessa said, I owe you something I never said correctly. What? The hospital morning. My chest tightened even after 3 years. Okay, I was wrong before I knew the outcome. I looked at her. What do you mean? For years, I defended myself by thinking Ruth ended up okay. Henry got her there. You handled it. Nothing terrible happened. She looked ashamed. But I was wrong before any of that. The moment you said her chest hurt, I should have handed you the keys. Whether it turned out to be indigestion or a heart attack should not have mattered. That was the apology I had needed. Not because it changed our ending, because it finally named the actual wound. Thank you. I'm sorry. I know. Do you forgive me? Yes. She started crying. Does that make you wish we'd tried longer? No. She nodded. I knew you'd say that. Sorry. Don't be. She smiled sadly. I think forgiveness was the thing I wanted, not another marriage. That conversation gave us peace. Ruth became a great-grandmother at 84. Brooke named the baby Rebecca Grace without telling Ruth in advance. When the nurse asked the baby's name, Brooke looked toward Ruth and said it. Mom completely lost composure. You should have warned me. Brooke laughed. You'd have argued. Correct. Why? Because babies deserve their own names. Too late. Ruth held little Rebecca Grace and whispered something nobody else heard. Later I asked, what did you say? None of your business. Mom, I told her I hope she grows up knowing she never has to earn her chair at a family table. That one stayed with me, because that was what all of this had really been about. Chairs. Who gets one automatically? Who has to carry the table before they are allowed to sit? Ruth had spent 81 years showing up without keeping score. Vanessa saw that generosity and, over time, treated it as something available when useful and optional when inconvenient. Brooke inherited part of that attitude, just as I taught people to depend on me by saying yes too quickly. We all participated in the pattern, but participation does not mean equal responsibility. The person who crosses a boundary is responsible for crossing it. The person who failed to speak sooner is responsible for learning to speak. Those are different jobs. My job was not to punish Vanessa. My job was to stop abandoning myself in order to keep everyone else calm. My job was to tell Brooke no without fearing I would lose the word dad. My job was to let Ruth decide what happened to Ruth. My job was to stop treating my ability to solve problems as proof I was required to solve them. That changed my life more than the divorce did. I started coaching youth baseball again on Saturdays. I had stopped years earlier because weekends always seemed consumed by household projects, Brooke's needs, Vanessa's plans, Mom's errands, something. The first season back, I coached 12-year-olds who believed every ground ball was a personal tragedy. I loved it. I started having breakfast with Henry every other Friday. He refused to let me pay because, you still owe me for hospital transportation. I told him I had offered gas money. Interest. You're a criminal. Retired. Ruth joined a book club in her condo building and complained constantly about one woman named Patricia who never finished the books but dominated discussion. Maybe she enjoys community. Maybe she should read chapter 4. At 70, 80, whatever age we are, life continues being ordinary if we are lucky. That is the part people miss in revenge stories. The satisfying ending is not watching somebody suffer. The satisfying ending is waking up one morning and realizing the conflict no longer organizes your day. Vanessa stopped being the first thing I thought about. The hospital stopped being the scene I replayed. Ruth's house stopped being a battlefield and became a memory. Brooke stopped calling only when she needed something. Sometimes she called and said, "What are you doing?" I would wait. "Nothing, just checking." That used to make me suspicious. Eventually, it made me happy. The first Thanksgiving after the divorce, Brooke and Tyler hosted in their apartment. Tiny kitchen, folding chairs, turkey slightly dry. Ruth came with cranberry sauce. Vanessa came with sweet potatoes. I brought pie. Nobody owned the room enough to control it. Halfway through dinner, Brooke's smoke detector went off because rolls burned. Tyler opened windows. I stood to help. Brooke pointed at me. "Sit down." "There's smoke." "Tyler has it." "I can." "Dad." I sat. Ruth smiled across the table. "Look at that. Recovery. You stay out of this." "Never." We ate late. Nobody died. That Thanksgiving remains one of my favorites. No formal toasts. No housing announcements. No wedding plans. No rank. Just food, laughter, one burned pan, and a baby photo passed around because Brooke had just learned she was pregnant. At the end of the night, Vanessa approached Ruth while everyone else packed leftovers. Rebecca. Vanessa. I'm sorry for what happened last year. Ruth looked at her for a long moment. Which part? Vanessa smiled sadly. Fair. Then she said, I'm sorry I treated your health like Daniel's inconvenience instead of our family's emergency. And I'm sorry I planned around your house like you weren't still living your life. Ruth nodded. Thank you. I don't expect anything. Good, Vanessa laughed softly. You never make it easy. Easy is overrated. Then Ruth did something I did not expect. She hugged her. Briefly. Not reconciliation, recognition. Two women accepting the truth without pretending it meant they belonged in each other's lives. Later, I asked Mom why. She apologized. You didn't have to hug her. I know. Then why? Because I wanted to. That is what boundaries are supposed to restore. Choice. Not permanent hardness. Choice. My mother is 86 now. Slower. Uses a cane when sidewalks are icy. Still lives in her condo. Still beats me at cards often enough that I have investigated possible cheating. She denies everything. Henry is 80 and still drives, though his daughter monitors him like air traffic control. Brooke and Tyler have 2 children. Rebecca Grace is 3. Their son Harold Daniel is 10 months old, which is an absurd amount of family history to put on one baby, but I was not consulted. Vanessa remarried last year. A widower named Thomas who apparently enjoys jazz and owns too many bicycles. I met him at Brooke's daughter's birthday party. He shook my hand and said, I've heard good things. I looked at Vanessa. She said, mostly. We laughed. That was enough. I have not remarried. I have dated. I'm not opposed to it. I am simply no longer terrified of an empty seat beside me. That matters. For years, I remained in a marriage partly because I thought leaving meant failure and loneliness. Turns out you can be lonelier lying beside someone you are afraid to disappoint than sleeping alone in a quiet townhouse where every room allows you to breathe. I learned how to cook properly instead of grilling everything. I travel. I coach baseball. I see Mom twice a week because I choose to, not because she demands it. Sometimes she tells me not to come. I have cards. You're choosing cards over your son? Yes. Cruel. Figure it out. The first time she said that, we both froze, then laughed until she had tears in her eyes. The sentence that had ended my marriage had become harmless in the mouth of someone who had spent a lifetime proving the opposite. Context is everything. Last Thanksgiving, our entire strange family gathered at Brooke's house. Vanessa and Thomas came. Ruth came. Tyler's parents. Henry too, because Mom insists he is basically related now. Kids everywhere. Turkey. Football. Chaos. At dinner, Rebecca Grace climbed into Ruth's lap and asked, Grandma Ruth, is this your family? Ruth looked around the table. Me, Vanessa, Thomas, Brooke, Tyler, children, friends, former spouses. People who had hurt one another, forgiven some things, never repaired others, and still learned to sit in one room without demanding ownership. Some of them, Ruth said. Everybody laughed. The little girl frowned. Which ones? Ruth kissed her forehead. Family is complicated. Why? Because grown-ups are slow learners. Daddy says Grandpa Dan is slow. Daddy is correct. I objected. Nobody cared. Later that night, I helped Ruth into my truck. She was tired. As I buckled her seatbelt, she touched my cheek the same way she had in the hospital years earlier. You came, she said. I smiled. I always come. I know. Then she looked toward Brooke's house, where Vanessa was standing in the doorway talking with Thomas. She learned too. Some. Good. Mom? Yeah? Do you ever regret that Thanksgiving? Which part? Letting Vanessa make the announcement. Calling everything out. Ruth thought about it. No. Why? Because silence had become expensive. She settled into the seat. Somebody finally had to stop paying for it. I drove her home thinking about that. Silence had become expensive. That is what I had done for years. Paid for quiet with apologies. Paid for harmony with money. Paid for belonging with availability. Paid for marriage by pretending disrespect was misunderstanding. Paid for fatherhood by never letting Brooke feel disappointed. Paid for being a son by feeling guilty anytime Ruth needed me. Everybody got comfort. I got exhaustion. The hospital morning did not magically make me strong. It simply made the price visible. My mother's chest hurt. Her hand went numb. I asked my wife for a car. She looked at me and said, "She's your mother, not mine." Every excuse I had made for years suddenly became impossible to afford. People ask whether Vanessa losing access to Ruth's house or wedding money was revenge. No. Revenge would have been trying to make her feel what I felt. I did not need that. Ruth chose her own home. Brooke paid more of her own wedding. Vanessa faced the consequences of saying what she believed in an ugly moment. I chose not to stay married. Those were boundaries, not punishments. The difference matters. A punishment says, "I want you to hurt because you hurt me." A boundary says, "You can no longer hurt me this way." That is what I finally learned at 56. I also learned something uncomfortable about family entitlement. People can say, "Not my problem," when a person needs care, then say, "Family helps family," the moment that same person owns something useful: a house, money, childcare, a vacation property, time, emotional labor. Suddenly, blood becomes sacred when benefits appear. Do not let vocabulary confuse you. Family is not a word people earn the right to use only when they want access. Family is what you do when there is nothing to gain. Henry was family in that hospital parking lot. Brooke became family again when she accepted no and changed. Vanessa was not family to Ruth when Ruth needed her, and that mattered more than every holiday photograph she had ever posted. Ruth never asked for perfect loyalty. She asked for basic humanity. When I look back now, the biggest mistake I made was not marrying Vanessa. We had good years, real love, real laughter. Brooke, a life worth remembering. My mistake was believing good history required unlimited future access. It does not. You can honor the parts of a relationship that were real and still leave when the current version asks you to disappear. You can forgive somebody without giving them the same role. You can love a stepchild after divorcing her mother. You can love your mother without letting her control your marriage. You can love yourself without making everybody who disappointed you into villains. Mature boundaries are not about proving who was worst. They are about deciding what is allowed next. Ruth taught me that without ever giving a speech about self-worth, she simply lived as though dignity did not expire with age. She showed me you can accept help without giving up authority. You can be grateful without becoming obedient. You can be old, vulnerable, frightened, sick, and still fully entitled to decide where you live and who gets access to your life. The last time I asked whether she planned to move again someday, she said, "Yes, eventually everybody moves." Where? Depends. On what? If heaven has decent parking. Still, Ruth. So here is the question I would ask anyone listening, because I know families will split hard on this one. If your spouse refused to help when your elderly parent might be having a heart attack, then later tried to plan that parent's move so your adult child could use their house, and even told you in anger that you were not the child's real father, would genuine apologies and years have changed? Behavior be enough for you to stay married, or would you forgive them and still walk away? Because some moments do not create the problem, they finally reveal it.